It's now time for everyone's sixth favorite custom card review series channel. Recently, popular Yu-Gi-Oh YouTuber named DZeef created a custom card review video, which automatically bumps me down a spot, since there was 4 other people ahead of me. But I'm pretty sure I can climb back up to the 5th best custom card reviewer slot. Anyways, for today's video, I'll be reviewing 5 custom cards which have unique effects, because I really love these kinds of things. To take a break from reviewing support for archetypes and stuff. Archetype stuff is great. Usually it's kind of generic stuff though. This card special summons another card, lets you draw cards, all that kind of stuff. Pretty fine. This one is trying to look for some cards that are trying to do unique things. To give an example, I'll read off a card that I created. It's called Super Befuddle, and it is a quick play spell card. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation. Just a tip, not a very good thing to add to a card. I just made this, I think, after seeing Dark Ruler no more. Both players must open 5 new, unopened packs of Yu-Gi-Oh cards and create a new deck. If both players do not have 5 unopened packs, pause the duel, go to the nearest store to buy some. Then have a new sub-duel with these new decks. Whoever wins this new sub-duel can draw 2 cards and negate all the effects of their opponent's cards until the end of your opponent's next turn. So, this card right here, forces players to have another duel. A sub-duel has the exact same rules as a normal duel. I'd assume it even has the 2-match rule thing of, you have to win a best 2 out of 3 with 5 random packs. Just if you don't have any, just go to the store. That's what it requires. Sorry, I just thought this effect was really funny. It's based off of a Magic card. I forget what it's called, but it was banned because it requires you to do something similar to this of have a sub-duel. And then whoever wins that one just halves their life points or something. That's why I also gave it... This one actually has a pretty good effect though. If you get to draw 2 cards and then negate all of your opponent's card effects for basically 2 turns, you could probably win the duel. And they also can't stop it because it prevents, it's basically spell speed 4, and it's a quick play spell card, so you can use it during your opponent's turn if you think you're about to lose. Obviously you can use it during your turn, during your first turn, in order to have a very strong first turn play of having a sub-duel, in which you could probably also use this card if you accidentally drew it from them, and then have an additional sub-duel in order to win the next duel. But anyways, if you do resolve the effect and win that sub-duel, you could then draw 2 cards, go +1, and then negate all your opponent's monster effects for a turn. So, no hand traps. And then they can't really do anything on their next turn. And then you have... actually, it's just until the end of your opponent's next turn. So, if you use it on your first turn, it's just going to be for that one turn. Not the super strongest thing. I'm sorry, this one's a joke. Let's go on to the next one. This is just to give an example of what I mean with unique effects. We'll go on to one actually submitted. This one was by GCD. It's called Mind Scouter. GCD is another Yu-Gi-Oh YouTuber who does really creative decks. If you're a fan of my old videos where I did nothing but gimmick decks, it's basically what he does too. And he uploads them about as frequently as I do. So, once every couple months. Mind Scouter. This is a level 3 machine-type monster with more than 500 attacks, machine duplication targets. And it just has the effect of once per turn, quick effect. Target 1 empty main monster zone. The first time a monster is summoned to that zone, destroy that monster and inflict 500 damage to its controller, even if you no longer control this face-up card. This effect cannot be applied more than once to the same monster zone. So, what's interesting about this card is that it's a quick effect. So, if this was a normal spell speed 1 effect where you choose one of your opponent's monster card zones, they'll just never play in that zone. No big deal. not even worth considering. But since it's a quick effect, like if your opponent is about to special summon something to like a link monster zone, you can then chain this card to that effect in order to target that zone, in order to destroy a monster. And I think that's a really unique way of destroying cards, without having to do something completely off the wall, like having a sub-duel by buying packs from the store. This is a really good example of, like unique cards with unique effects. And it's also not very strong at all. It has like no stats. It can't special summon itself. You would have to like play this card face up and then just wait for your opponent, and then maybe you could destroy something, because you can only target main monster zones. So like if your opponent summons something like Skull Dread, where they have 3 link pointers, you can't possibly cover all 3 of them. But if they summon something like Nightmare Mermaid? I don't know. I forget the one. The one that has the down arrow. Nightmare Unicorn. That one has a down arrow. They only have 1 down arrow. You can just target that 1 down arrow, and then they can't really do anything or otherwise it gets destroyed. And it also stays there, even if this card leaves the field. So what this card could do is, honestly, now that I think about it, you could use the effect, because there's no time limit on this, to just target one of your opponent's monster card zones, and then use this card for like a link play or something, get rid of it. And then it's still going to happen because the effect still applies even if this card's no longer face up on the field. So if you have like a whole deck with monster effects like this, you could just eventually target all their monster card zones and force them to not really do much. That's great. Actually, I didn't even think about that. That actually makes this card a lot better because it doesn't need to stay up. Like if it does stay up, you can spell speed 2, select a monster card zone, and it gets destroyed. But if you don't plan on leaving it up, you can just use it to select a monster card zone and it'll get destroyed. Or, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's just once per turn, quick effect. So what you could do is target 1 during your turn, and then during your opponent's turn, you could target another one. So you get to target 2 monster card zones. And it's only empty zones. So, you can't target one of the monsters already inside of. Wow, that's really good, actually. I didn't even think about the effect of... Man, the more I think about it, the more this card seems good. Like, I just chose it because it seemed like a really unique effect. But it actually seems like it's a pretty well thought out, strong effect. And the reason it has a weak body is because, it can just be used for plays. Huh. That's neat. Okay, now let's go on to this next one. This next one is another unique effect that took me a while to figure out what the hell it was trying to do. So, I don't know if this card actually works though, because the effect I don't think has ever been tried before. So, it's called Pack Filler. It's a field spell card, where, while you control a tribute summoned, non-Gemini, normal monster with 1900 or less original attack and defense, this card gains the following effect. So if you take a look at this card, the artwork, you can see a garbage can with all of the garbage level 5 to 6 normal monsters that existed in the early part of Yu-Gi-Oh! So, this card is obviously designed to work with that. So, you gain 3 effects if you control one of these cards that was specifically tribute summoned. First effect, neither player can discard normal monsters. Now, that sounds kind of weird, because it's like, you can't discard a normal monster? Okay. I don't see how that's useful. Maybe if your opponent's trying to discard cards from your hand, you can... I don't know. You just can't discard them, I guess. That raises so many different kinds of, like, ruling problems that I'll get into after I read the rest of these. If your opponent would add cards to their hand outside of their normal draw, you can add 1 normal monster from your deck to your opponent's hand. So, if your opponent searches, or like draws a card, you can give your opponent a normal monster. And since they can't discard it, it's basically staying in their hand. But it's from your hand, though. That's not very good. And then the last one, quick effect, give 1 normal monster from your hand to your opponent. 1 card you control is unaffected by other card effects until the end of this turn. So two of the effects is giving your opponent cards in their hand from your hand. And the fact that neither player can discard normal monsters means ideally they can't discard them for like danger monster effects. Or they can't discard it as a cost for like Twin Twister or something like that. They just can't use them unless they bring them out from their hand, you know, through like a Link Spider. I don't think Link Spider would be able to bring out if you're using level 5 or higher normal monsters. So they'd have to tribute summon them in order to get rid of them. And here's the ingenious idea behind this. With this card, if you give your opponent 6 normal monsters that they can't use, you know, level 5 or higher, then, like, during their end phase, they won't be able to discard them due to game mechanics, and they'll have to discard everything else instead. So as long as they have 6, you know, during the end phase, they have to get rid of everything else in their hand. That being said, during their normal turn, you know, you can have as many cards in your hand as you want until the end phase. So it's not that much of a hindrance. You're just kind of filling their hand up with normal monsters that can't be discarded. I think you would probably need like one more effect where your opponent cannot have more than 6 cards in their hand or something like that, you know, at any time. But the way it is now, it's unique. What would make this card a lot better is if its second effect could add normal monsters from your deck to your opponent's hand, you know, instead of just from your hand to their hand. Because as it is now, it's kind of really hard to use for an effect that's a ruling's nightmare. Because, like, I can think of so many situations in which, you know, like, how could you not discard, like, you know, if you're using a danger effect, you technically don't know what card you're about to discard because it's chosen at random. And if you choose a normal monster at random, does it matter? Because it was chosen at random, doesn't it go to the graveyard anyway? Or does it only apply to cards which are revealed first before discarding? I don't know. That's why they don't have effects like this. Okay, let's go on to the next card. So next up, we have Overwhelming Greed. The person for this one, I think they drew this themselves, I'd assume. So, it's a quick play spell card where you can draw 10 cards, then banish your entire deck face down. If there are not at least 10 cards in your deck, you cannot activate this card. So, immediately, I thought, you know, wow, this card's broken. Because, you know, the idea behind this is if you draw 10 cards, and then you basically have to win that turn, otherwise, you know, you can't draw any cards. And drawing 10 cards can, yeah, definitely win you the duel. So, but I don't know if it can win you the duel without having a deck. That's the thing. However, things like Grenmaju decks, you know, they love having all those cards banished and drawing cards. Not even that, but I'm just thinking like in Grenmaju's decks, well, the ones I run anyway, there's a card called Necroface that when it's normal summoned, you can return all your banished cards to your deck. So if you just play Necroface, because, yeah, entire deck face down. I was about to say, is it face up or face down? I would assume it's face down because, you know, it's supposed to be like the pot of, I forget. I want to say pot of avarice, but that's not what it is. The one that lets you banish 10 cards in order to draw 2. You know, it seems like that. This one's, you know, draw 10, then banish the rest of your deck. If you just use Necroface, you can reset it, and there's other cards that allow you to, you know, return banished cards to your extra deck. So there's ways to not lose the duel, especially since this has no other restrictions, like, you know, no restrictions on special summons, no restrictions on drawing other cards, no restrictions on sending cards back to your deck. If I were to make this card a little bit more in line with what it's trying to do, you know, the theme of it, banish 10 cards, and then banish your entire deck face down. Another one would be, you cannot return cards to your deck this turn, or, you know, you lose the duel at the end of this turn, or set your life points to 0 at the end of this turn, something like that. You know, something to make sure you would lose at the end of the turn, and even then, this card would still be really strong. But there's also some decks that wouldn't be able to take advantage of it, because banishing your entire deck after drawing 10 cards, some decks are very reliant on searching or drawing cards in order to do their stuff. So it would still be really strong, but it has me questioning, would most of the meta decks even be able to use this card? Probably not. They'd have to completely alter their decks around playing this card, and in which case this card would also allow a whole bunch of other random cards to see play. It's interesting for being basically a meme card. It really gets me thinking about a whole bunch of different things. Okay, next up we have another one I made. There wasn't really too many, super unique cards. So this one's called 12 Knights. It's a counter trap card. When a monster would be summoned, or a monster effect, spell card, or trap card is activated, negate the summon or activation, and if you do, both players roll 2 dice. So basically its activation requirement is if your opponent's trying to do anything, negate it. And then both players get to play a fun little dice game where both players roll 2 dice. Whichever player has a sum of the 2 dice closer to the number 12 basically gets an effect. So both players roll 2 dice, and whoever has a result closer to 12 gets to activate the following effect, where you special summon 1 monster from your deck or extra deck, and then you draw 1 card. So pretty powerful effect on top of just a straight up negate on anything. But it does allow your opponent a chance to win this game, so that they get to special summon a card from their deck or extra deck and then draw a card. However, there's one little additional clause to it, where a player can choose to spend 3,000 life points to roll 1 additional dice to add to their original roll. But if they surpass number 12 with this effect, they automatically lose the roll. So it's basically like playing a game of blackjack, where you try to hit as close to 21 as possible, except in this case it's the number 12. So assuming you roll 2 of your dice and both of them landed on a 1, your total roll would only be like a 2. So you could then pay 3,000 life points to roll an additional dice. So even if you got a 6, you'd only go up to an 8 and you still wouldn't go above 12. But it would also increase your chances of winning that turn. However, if you rolled a 7 with the 2 dice, and then you use the effect again to roll an additional dice, there's a chance you can get a 6, and then your total would go above 12, just like playing blackjack, just with dice instead. That's all it is. It's a gamble. It's a gamble with a good negate attached to it, and whoever wins the gamble gets a pretty good effect. Special summoning any monster from your extra deck and drawing a card is a pretty good effect that either player would want to have. Probably not something that would totally win you the game, but it's definitely something where you'd want to pay life points in order to try to, gamble. It encourages gambling. It's a gamble thing. That's why it has gambling stuff in it. So yeah, that's this one. I'm not gonna talk too much about it because it's one I made. So basically 2 of them are just cards I made. That's just to give an idea of what I'm looking for in this, because I'd like to make another video like this, going over more cards that people send in that have really unique effects to them. So send those in addition to the normal stuff. And also, one more. We'll do a bonus card. This is a bonus one. It's not number 6, because this is a 5 cards plus a bonus one. So this last one is called Shape Snatch, the Morphin Rider. You really got to give props to the art on this one. It's 2 bad level 5 or 6 normal monster cards, and the fusion requirements is Shape Snatch and Morphin Fin. It gains 1,000 attack for each level 5 or higher normal monster with 2,000 or less attack and defense in your graveyard. So, it would combo really well with that other card that plays a whole bunch of really crappy level 5 or higher normal monsters. It's also unaffected by other monster effects, so kind of like that one normal monster fusion dragon that I'm blanking on its name right now. And once per turn, you can target one level 5 or higher normal monster with 2,000 or less attack or defense in your graveyard, special summon it, and if you do, the attribute and level of this card becomes the same as that monster's until the end of this turn. I was thinking, like, why does it have that last effect? It seems kind of lame. You can just target, special summon it, and then this card gains the same level and attribute. And then I looked at its level. It's like, oh, this is a level 5 fusion monster that doesn't have a restriction on its fusion summon. So that was made for its instant fusion potential. Oh, that makes a lot more sense. And yeah, this card is really good with instant fusion now that I think about it. Is it super unique? Not really. That's why it's only a bonus card. The effect itself is pretty standard. It gains attack and then special summon something. And it just works with a weird kind of monster. Level 5 or higher. Normal monsters with less than 2,000 attack and defense. And I just love the artwork. It's a really good instant fusion target, but it wouldn't be broken like Norden because its targets are much more specific than just a level 4 or lower monster. Okay, so that's it for this custom card review. As always, send in custom card submissions to my Twitter, which is linked below. If you're a fan of custom cards, there's a Discord you can join. There's also a subreddit that's a lot more active than it used to be. I like to think it's because I've been shouting it out in these videos, but, I'm only the 6th best custom card reviewer, so I doubt I have too much weight in these kinds of things. So, until next time.